As the 2025 Formula One season draws to its final chapter, the title fight has reached a level of tension that feels almost unbearable. 3 drivers remain in contention, 2 teams stand in opposition, and only one race in Abu Dhabi will decide everything. Lando Norris enters the finale as the championship leader, with Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri locked in pursuit, their hopes hanging by the thinnest of margins. For months, McLaren has fiercely defended a philosophy built on absolute equality, a promise that their drivers would be allowed to race freely, even if it meant risking the World Championship. CEO Zak Brown famously declared he'd rather lose the title to Max Verstappen than instruct either of his drivers to move aside. But as we approach the decisive weekend, that noble ideal is about to collide with the harshest reality imaginable. A scenario is forming, a perfect storm, one capable of pushing McLaren into a decision they swore they would never make, and placing Oscar Piastri in a moment that could tear the championship wide open. Picture this. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix has entered its final laps. Max Verstappen leads the race, executing one of his most controlled drives of the season. Oscar Piastri runs second, just far enough behind to no longer pose a threat. In third sits George Russell, or any other driver capable of disrupting the order. And in fourth is Lando Norris, the man who currently holds the points advantage, but not enough of it. If this finishing order remains unchanged, Verstappen will be crowned a 5-time world champion. Norris needs at least 3rd place to seal the title. He needs one position, and that single position rests entirely in the hands of Oscar Piastri. In this scenario, Piastri, despite delivering a spectacular drive to P2, would be mathematically out of the title hunt. He can no longer win, but he becomes the man who can decide who does. For McLaren, this is the nightmare scenario they hoped would never materialize. The command would have to come from the pit wall, "Oscar, let Lando through." But it wouldn't be a simple request. To elevate Norris into the position he needs, Piastri would have to slow down enough to allow both the 3rd-placed car and his teammate to pass him. The price of securing Norris's the championship would be sacrificing his own hard-earned 2nd place in the final race of the season. It would be the ultimate demonstration of loyalty, a gesture few drivers in Formula One history have ever been willing to make. And after the events of this season, it is no longer clear that Oscar Piastri would comply. Throughout 2025, Piastri has been the embodiment of a team player. In Monza, he was controversially instructed to yield to Norris following Lando's slow pit stop, and he accepted the call without argument, calling it fair. In Brazil's sprint race, with Norris in a stronger championship position, Piastri was asked once again to step aside for the sake of the bigger picture. He did it again, quietly, without public protest. But a pattern had begun to form, a pattern of sacrifice, and a series of painful incidents began to erode his trust in the team. The breaking point came in Qatar. Piastri had been the fastest man all weekend, extracting every ounce of performance from the McLaren. Yet a disastrous strategic miscalculation from the pit wall cost him a near certain win, handing the win directly to Max Verstappen. The images from Parc Fermé that evening struck the paddock hard. Verstappen and Carlos Sainz celebrated joyfully with their teams, while Piastri stood alone by his car, shoulders dropped, no engineers, no mechanics, no McLaren figures around him. It was a moment that felt symbolic, a moment that sparked whispers of deeper tensions within the Papaya garage. This is where the story took an even more dramatic turn. Former world champion Jacques Villeneuve publicly floated a theory that stunned the F1 world, that Piastri may now suspect an internal conspiracy at McLaren, a conviction that the team does not want him to win the championship. Speaking to CoinPooker, Villeneuve explained, "Once you're on the losing end or in a bad spell, everything goes through your mind. Then people talk to you, telling you, of course they're trying to bring you down, and you start believing it. And because you believe it, you make it happen." His comments ignited a firestorm. If true, they suggest that after a season of selfless obedience, culminating in the emotional sting of Qatar, Piastri's loyalty may have finally fractured. And now with Abu Dhabi looming, all of that history comes crashing into a single hypothetical moment. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella has already confirmed pre-race talks will be held with both drivers, reiterating the team's long-standing stance. If any of our drivers is in condition to pursue the title, we will respect that. The famous papaya rules have always emphasized freedom to race, but the key phrase is condition to pursue. In our scenario, by the final lap, Piastri no longer has that condition. Mathematically eliminated, his role shifts from contender to kingmaker. McLaren's procedures would then logically dictate that the team protect the championship for the driver who can still win it, Norris. But Villeneuve predicts Piastri will refuse. When asked if Oscar would help Norris win the title if Oscar himself could no longer do so, Villeneuve bluntly replied, no. Because until the last lap, Piastri could still win the championship. His logic is ruthless, but not unreasonable. A final lap mechanical failure for either Verstappen or Norris, however unlikely, would instantly change the outcome. Why surrender a podium and with it his last thread of hope when even a 1 in a million chance remains alive? The mathematics of the standings only heighten the drama. Norris leads with 408 points. Verstappen sits on 396, 12 points behind. Piastri holds 392, trailing Norris by 16 and Verstappen by 4. If Verstappen wins and Norris finishes 4th, Verstappen becomes champion. But if Piastri yields and allows Norris into 3rd, those additional points swing the title back to McLaren. On paper, it's simple. In reality, it's an emotional minefield. By following team instructions, Piastri would sacrifice his result, his pride, and perhaps his future within McLaren. By refusing, he risks tearing apart the team and potentially handing the championship to Red Bull. The irony is almost poetic. After an entire season spent defending a hands-off, no-team orders philosophy, McLaren could be forced to issuing the most explosive, high-stakes team order imaginable. Not in the middle of the season, not when the title fight was still open, but on the very last lap of the entire year. It would undermine Zak Brown's public declarations and reveal a brutal truth. In the face of losing the World Championship, principles can be the first casualty. And then comes the real question. Would Oscar Piastri comply? If Stella's voice breaks through the radio with the words, "Oscar, let Lando and Russell pass," the next 2 seconds could define the 2025 World Championship. Would he be the loyal teammate who sacrifices everything to secure Norris the title? Or the frustrated young star who, after feeling overshadowed and let down, takes a stand and holds his position and unknowingly crowns Max Verstappen? The pressure on Piastri in that moment would be unimaginable. He'd be weighing the expectations of his team against his own identity as a competitor. He'd be choosing between a future as McLaren's trusted lieutenant or as a driver who refuses to accept a secondary role. This decision, this single moment, could determine the trajectory of his career. So now the question turns to you. What should Oscar Piastri do in that situation? Should he obey the team and help Norris secure the title? Or should he race for himself and hold on to the result he earned on track? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And once you're done, click on the video on your screen right now.